Welcome to the Transforming Healthcare Coaching Podcast, where we bring you guidance and coaching perspectives so that you can level up in your life and work. Hi there, I'm your host, Lillian Emlet, and I am joined each week by our incredible and diverse team of energy leadership coaches and guest speakers to bring you coaching perspectives to expand your awareness and inspire you to action. We believe that by empowering each individual within the healthcare community, we can create a ripple effect of positive change. I would like to introduce our team of coaches for today's episode.
Hi, I'm Gillian Faith, and my healthcare experience comes from rehabilitation services as a clinician and also a clinical leader in both Scotland and the USA. I have also spent years in human resources management. I like to work with clinical managers, healthcare executives, and also clients who are experiencing overwhelm and stress. They may be dealing with conflict, or they may have important decisions or transitions to make.
Hi, my name is Amy, life transition and career coach. From mind-body therapist to an ultrasound technologist, I've worked hands-on with thousands of clients. I understand the challenges of balancing work and self-care, especially in the healthcare field. We work together to ignite your inner motivations and line up your goals with your career and your personal life. Sometimes a simple shift is all it takes.
Hi, I'm Klaus Grim. I'm an emergency medicine and urgent care physician assistant and clinical assistant professor practicing in the Boston area. I enjoy partnering with healthcare professionals across all specialties, students, and frontline workers to empower them to thrive in their personal and professional lives by reclaiming joy at home and at work and turning their life goals into reality.
So, a little bit about me, I wear many hats. I'm an adult intensivist, emergency physician, and a simulation educator. I'm also a single mom, Peloton junkie, and a foodie. I went back to school and became a certified professional coach during the pandemic, mostly because of the pandemic, right? It shook up everybody's lives. And I also experienced the power of coaching my own life. And then I started this group. And so I'm super excited to be able to find aligned people who want to help all of healthcare together. And so I want to just begin our conversation today about what's actually work-life well-being mean for healthcare professionals. And what have you heard out there with your colleagues when they hear the wellness people come around?
So I think that a lot of times with work-life balance and wellness, it gets a lot of bad rap, especially in healthcare. They're like, I'm in healthcare and my life's fine and I don't need to take care of myself. I'm taking care of others and what habits I have are what I have. And to just, I think, briefly elaborate on maybe what work-life balance means. I think it's different for everybody, but it's basically I think in the wording, how's work and how's life and how are the two communicating with each other? Do you find that if things are going bad at home or in your personal life, are they impacting you at work and vice versa? And how do you separate the two? I think is something that we talk a lot about and that a lot of people are looking for solutions with. And then I think with the wellness aspect of it, people may see that a little bit differently and see that as more on the personal touch of things. And I don't think many people find wellness in work to really correlate too much. I'm curious to see what you guys think.
It's fun because we're in the healthcare business, but some people say it's the illness care business, right? When people aren't feeling well, they come in. So that's really who the majority of healthcare professionals are working with. So it's the opposite of now thinking, oh, I want to be in business for being well and for myself. It's a little bit of a difference there. And the one area that I really find is noticing, like when you go home from work and how you feel. Some people I know just crash on the couch and they can't even move. That would be a sign. Wait a minute, I'm really so tired from my work that my home life, I'm just drained. So that would be a sign of, okay, something is not in balance here.
And I've also heard people say that, how can I achieve work-life balance? I'm never going to be in balance. So a few people I've spoken to recently have talked more about integration, work-life integration. If I can't get the balance that I ideally would like, How can I integrate the two so that it does work better for me?
Yeah, it's interesting whenever I talk with people about, do you feel well? They just look at me with a very odd look because they don't quite understand what I'm getting at in terms of, do they actually feel grounded and healthy and happy and relaxed, especially when you're asking them that question in a high stakes emergency department or in the hallway when they just got done getting yelled at by a family member. I mean, for most people that I've asked, well, what does well being mean for them? It really comes down to having enough personal and private time to be able to rejuvenate and get into the grounding of their family or their faith or their hobbies and doing other things. It's a hard thing for some people to actually think about what their well-being means, because when they're at work, that means they're not being well at all because that doesn't come into play. And then when you ask others, they're actually quite fine to be. I'm well because I'm here with you. I'm here in the present moment. I'm here with the patients. I'm really happy to be here. I'm happy to be in this meeting. And so you do find a very interesting mix when you talk to different people in healthcare for what wellness means for them. That's what I've found at least.
Lily, I think that's very interesting. And when you had asked that, are you well? It got me thinking, what does that mean? And then you brought up this scenario, which I think happens far too often in every profession in healthcare, is an upset family member, upset patient that really makes you feel unwell at the moment. And it is so easy to go to another person and start to get really upset and spread this catabolic energy and cause that to spread among the department, right? But if somebody had, and I'm just thinking that if this is my scenario, if I was being yelled at, if somebody says, are you well? It would get me to think. I'd be like, I'm not well, but I want to be well. And how do I get there? And I think just asking that question and giving somebody that space, I think, can actually really shift somebody to maybe make those positive changes to be better at that moment.
I think this is really interesting. Even just last night, just talking with some colleagues, there are a lot of things that actually happen between colleagues that I was unaware of. The amount of interprofessional bullying that occurs in the clinical workspace is very subtle and often not processed. And so it actually was really nice to many of the other nurses had already talked about this many months ago. And I had been unaware, and the other nurse practitioner I was on with was also unaware. So in some ways, by rehashing things again, it helped us become more aware for what things were going on right underneath our eyes. As we thought we were working the clinical space, taking care of patients, there were other interprofessional things, interpersonal things that were happening that really weren't helpful for a conducive, healthy workplace environment. So I think a lot of those things also happen, and it's good to just have other people that you feel safe enough that you could tell. So I actually really appreciated them sharing and us knowing, because it makes me realize how clueless perhaps I was all those months. Something like that was happening right in my environment.
Just having your standings from other colleagues and the validation that, yes, this is actually happening, and collectively, how can we approach it? What can we do to mitigate it or move into a better place?
Yeah. And I was going to ask you, Gillian, because you do deal with so much conflict and also perceived differences in conflict resolution. How, especially in the healthcare work environment, how do managers mediate that, right? Between different people within the department have an issue and we all get called into the office together. And so how do we begin to think through things? And this all happened to all of us at some point. I've been called into an office before. So how do we begin for ourselves, begin to get that well feeling back so that we actually can process, be healthy about it, and actually have a meaningful relationship, maybe recovery?
I think one of the key things with a scenario like that is to be able to talk about it. A lot of people are in situations where they shut down and they don't want to talk about it because either they don't feel confident, they don't know what to say, they don't trust whoever it is they're working with. So to be able to have a conversation and to try and take some of the emotion out of that, either by having it facilitated by somebody who is good at that, or just having the skills to think about it, reframe it, and ask questions in a different way that don't get somebody's back up and don't make somebody immediately defensive, because then it's really hard to fix a communication breakdown or an issue that's arisen.
Gillian, you actually taught our listeners and us something during positive intelligence when we talked about positive intelligence in that episode. And when you guys were mentioning this conflict, something that just came back to me is when there is conflict among you or somebody else, just think that that other person that you're having the issues with, they have 10% chance, and tell me if I'm wording this wrong, 10% chance that what they're saying is correct. And just holding on to that 10% might be able to help you move on from the situation.
Yeah, there is a theory that if you're in a situation where you have conflicting thoughts or ideas, that the other person, even if you think you completely disagree with them, probably is around or 10% correct or more than 10%. So if we can approach something with that idea that perhaps this person does have something to think about, then it helps with resolution.
You really said a really important thing, just really just recognizing that there are so many emotions and none of us work well when we're all living off of the emotions in general. So I want to transition a little bit. Speaking of emotions, how can you tell that there's something not quite right with your own personal work-life balance or integration? How do you know when you need to be adjusted? And I think all of us have had some kind of episode of burnout at some point in our careers in healthcare. We're now more primed to recognize it, but what are some of the things that you've noticed in the past or noticed in your colleagues or with your clients?
For me, it's when I start to notice that whatever it is that's going on got inside of me. And I think it's Eleanor Roosevelt said, all the water in the world cannot drown you. It's only the water that gets inside of you. And a lot of what we do here is to help people to be okay on the inside and with the way they are and the way they respond to situation. And of course, things always happen. But for me, that sign, if something feels like those are my words, it gets inside of me and it gets a hold of me, then that's my sign. Okay, I need to do something here.
And for me, I've noticed there's a line. And when I cross that line, I get into feelings of overwhelm and waking up in the morning and not feeling refreshed because I haven't slept well the night before. I think healthcare professionals are really good at saying yes to lots of things, including myself. And I have learned over the years to say no to some things because I don't want to get to that point of overwhelm. And I think as coaches, that's something we can help people with because we're all in the giving, caring professions. So it's really easy to continually say, I'll do that, or I'll take care of that, or yeah, leave that one to me, and then find that we've taken on too much.
Yeah. I think the awareness that we as coaches have developed from being coached and just working on ourselves to live the best lives that we can, we recognize, like you had mentioned, Amy, like when we're absorbing these energies that we don't want and they start to manifest physically, I think it's a warning sign, at least for me, that I'm starting to deviate off this path. And one thing I noticed when I was being coached, I was much more resilient. And I'm in the process of finding a new coach myself. But I was much more resilient in the aspect that when these things were happening and I started to absorb these things, I was able to bounce back much quicker than when I wasn't really working on myself to make these changes happen.
Yeah, it just highlights the reality of awareness and just being aware of how we're feeling or showing up. For me, it's irritation. When I'm just like irritated at everything and the irritation gets bigger and the snippiness starts to become faster and rather than giving grace, like grace to everybody, grace to myself, and also realizing I actually really do doing the action that I'm partaking in currently. When normal things become irritating, where you sigh because you have to do whatever, a note or email or what you chose this job. So it seems a little odd that you're now sighing and complaining about it. For me, it's just being aware that I need to break out of this cycle. I think for all of our clients and for ourselves, we've actually seen how imbalances in your work and life can actually cause significant professional issues with your job performance or with your personal life or relationships. Can you give any examples of what that can manifest like? And so for some people, if you're not aware of sort of the things we're talking about, this is actually how it might first manifest itself, which is some kind of performance or personal issue.
The obvious one in healthcare is that if it's really manifesting in someone, they could make errors. All of us, when we get tired and things are just not going right and we're not able to keep that integration, it's just a normal human manifestation that we can make errors. And in healthcare, that can be a big problem.
Not even just making errors, which are huge, but also creating a negative work environment. Say you're the sole physician on an emergency room. If you're very catabolic or very upset and stressed and anxious, that's going to reflect on your team as well. And it's not going to lead to good patient care. It's not going to be you performing at your best. And then when you stay in that space, it just further follows you at home. And that can lead to relationship issues where you're getting in arguments. I think you brought up the habit of people just going right on the couch. Then you're not exercising, you're not eating well, you may be drinking alcohol too much. It just leads down a worsening path, typically speaking, if you don't cut yourself pretty quickly and make the changes to get out of it.
And not only that, these all have ripple effects. We know that energy and the way we are is contagious. And if we're going in a downward spiral, it can affect the people around us as well and the patient care.
Yeah, I really like, Amy, what you pointed out about the errors, because I think that was the main reason why so much of these clinician well-being initiatives from a national perspective really has taken off. That the National Academies of Medicine and most large healthcare organizations have chief wellness officers now. There's multiple dollars and cents and measurements and assessment tools and institutes in terms of doing research and trying to figure this out, because the reality is there is a direct line to both retention, turnover, so the cost, and also the medical errors, which is the liability. And also, nobody, then it just begets itself. And then from there, people enter a spiral with mental health issues and then continue to spiral downward. I'm wondering, are there any self-assessment tools or techniques that healthcare professionals can use to evaluate their work-life situations?
Think there are a lot of tools, assessments out there, and we talk about one in an earlier episode about our Energy Leadership Index assessment, which is a unique, tailored roadmap, energy story, as Amy likes to put it, that can help you get awareness of how you are on a day-to-day life and when you're under stress, which I think is huge. But whatever you decide to pursue in terms of that, make sure it's for you and nobody's telling you what your imbalances are. Only you know what your imbalances are, and that you should make sure that it is a unbiased assessment that is really in service to helping you create awareness. And if you can get the added benefit of debriefing with somebody who's an expert on that assessment or tool to really help you create a tailored roadmap to fix those imbalances.
And as coaches, in addition to assessments, we also have other tools that we can use. So we can really look at the overall client and how they're functioning and really drill down in the areas that they're maybe struggling with. And sometimes what a client comes to us with is not the real issue. Once we dig down deeper, we find out there's something else at the root of it. And that's where working with a coach can be really helpful, because sometimes we're not aware of that.
And it is important that we're our own judge or the sayer of how we're doing. Yet I also remember a time after I was having burnout and then I was taking a lot of steps to improve that. I actually got feedback also in the positive way. And my partner said, "Wow, your smile is back." I can't even tell you. I love to smile. I had lost my smile. And then I took huge steps to turn my life around. And then to have someone unwarranted just say, "Wow, your smile is back." That was really good feedback. So sometimes trusted people in our lives can give us feedback in all ways.
And I think for me and my clients, we always start our coaching relationship with thinking about our values and our identities so they can ground us who they are as a person. And then really from there, like in terms of what those major roles and identities are really important on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling today? So even just using that to check in with yourself every morning, how am I feeling today? And being okay with it. So physically, I feel a 3 because I'm tired. And to give yourself grace and know where you are. Some days you're not going to feel a 3. Other days you'll feel like an 8 or a 9. I just did a workout, for example. And then just to also recognize it. There you can either give yourself grace or choose to do something about it. So I think even just doing a quick little 1 to 10 scale for yourself, like what's important to me today, 1 or 2 things, and then just self-rate yourself gives you some insight for maybe I shouldn't tackle this today and maybe I should do something different, because you want to leverage your energy. You want to leverage where you are right now rather than fight against an uphill battle. Which leads me into my next question for all of you is once you recognize that things are off, once you recognize whether it be your health, your pillar of your health, or your relationships, or your work, or your time, or how do you, if something's off balance, what steps can you take to address it?
I think creating some really strong boundaries in your life is important. Even if you put it on a calendar, like this is my time with my family. This is my time. I put my device away. I am not, unless you have to because of some kind of a work requirement, but otherwise, do you really need your phone? Do you need your devices? Get off the devices and have some time on your calendar to do the things that you know you need or that are important to you. And those things can make a big impact on people.
And one thing that comes up for me in this conversation is sometimes we're in situations that can seem overwhelming and we may have some options, but which path do we choose? And sometimes just taking one small step, one intentional small step, and making one little improvement and getting the feedback from that about being successful can be really helpful in actually tackling a bigger issue. And if we take one small step each day, then hopefully we'll eventually get to, making an impact in whatever it is that's troubling us.
And probably say that what I do when I have these imbalances is if I'm rating myself a 3, for instance, that day, Lily, I may reach out to a coworker and complain and say this happened and spiral that energy, which is not what I want in life. Some people go to the bar, go for a drink, right? These are things that are probably not the healthiest of habits to do when you're starting to recognize an imbalance. But one thing that I like what Gillian just said is, and something that I try to employ is when I notice that imbalance, I go to one small step that I can do, or I guess what I had in mind for my self-help that I don't do very often, right? Some things that I want to do for my personal growth and for my self-help is read more. So putting that technology, like Amy says, away and grabbing a book and trying to read at least a chapter just to center myself and say, I can either go spiral downward or I can continue to make steps forward.
I love all that. I love the micro steps because at the end of the day, people think there has to be some kind of massive miracle that happens. It's not true at all. It's just it's in the little moments that we actually both find joy and gratitude and also get ourselves out of the situation. And for me, I guess what I always wonder, I guess the question I pose to our audience is, what's one small thing that you can be proud of? Because when you're proud of yourself, it really can catapult you to the very next small micro step. And so I think for me, listening, like when I'm tired and I'm on 3 and the Aura ring tells me that I did not get enough sleep, I actually take a nap and then I'm proud of myself. I actually did the right thing. And it's little things, right? For a lot of people, it's just honestly drinking water. It is the really small things. And you're like, I did that. And then from there, it's almost like the rest becomes a little bit easier. And so as we come to a close, I'm wondering if there's any tips that you would like to share for how you can set up good habits to not get into this situation where you won't get imbalanced. I don't know if any of you have any life hacks in terms of one small tip that you could share with the audience that helps you not get into imbalance.
For me, it's routine. I think that once I get in a routine, say that I've been neglecting doing my morning stretching or little exercises, or if it's nice out, going for a walk, and it's hard for me to get into that routine. But once I get it, it's very easy and that can change my whole day. So it's really setting up a routine where I know I have the time and the space to do it, and I know it's something that's going to really help me. And it starts the day and it starts the upward spiral for the rest of my day.
Yeah, I love what you say, Amy. And I think to piggyback onto that, to do that before we switch on our laptop and look at email or look at our phone, that's a really good time to do it before we then start to get all this information overload and start our minds going in different places depending on what we're reading on our emails. So taking some time in the morning before we get into all that, I think can be a very good habit to form.
And you will always have an imbalance. Knowing that situations and life events happen that are going to throw you off the wheel is very important to be aware about. But to have strategies when these things do develop, a routine, amazing. For some people, it's very difficult, especially if you do shift work, like nurses and physicians who work in hospitals, whether it be hospitalist medicine versus ICU emergency medicine. They're sometimes working mornings, afternoon, and nights. and sticking to a same schedule is very difficult. But being able to jump to reading a book, going for a walk, listening to a podcast, something that you consider to be something engaging and positive for you in a time when you may not feel that way.
I love that hack, Klaus, making it easy and doable. So I always tell my trainees, you have 3 seconds in the car. You're transitioning, driving home, like that. Those transition times are really important just to take a couple breaths. No one's going to care if you just breathe. Just breathe with yourself for 1 minute. It's less than a red light. So making just those small little things. And for me, it's actually just like Amy, relentless self-care. So for me, it's yoga or meditation. And sometimes like it shrinks down to 5 minutes on the mat, but 5 minutes is all you necessarily need. So making the chunks really small so it's actually achievable. Because again, then you're proud of yourself and then you can just do the next thing.
Yeah, and they say for the brain activity, when you get that one accomplishment, especially in the morning, nothing too difficult, but when you get it done, you did it, you did whatever you chose that makes you feel better, but it's like a dopamine rush. You get that, and it starts that upward spiral, and then you're more motivated to do the next thing and the next thing. And just creating that simple task that's doable, it just gets things going, and it starts the upward spiral.
I love that. So that thing is our conclusion. The micro habit is simple and doable to start the upward spiral. Thank you so much for listening to the Transforming Healthcare Coaching podcast. If you found this episode interesting or useful, please share it with your friends and colleagues in healthcare. And we would love it if you hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode. We want to help with the topics and problems that you want us to talk about. Leave us a review wherever you listen to us with suggestions, feedback, and praise. It means so much to us, and we actually read every comment. For deeper support in your life and work as a healthcare professional and leader, head over to transforminghealthcarecoaching.com. Download our free 5 reflection questions to jumpstart your journey and join our email list to be the first to know about our coaching programs. We're also excited to offer the MedThrive community, a supportive space for group coaching and self-paced personal growth, providing an alternative path to growth beyond one-on-one coaching programs. Find out more and join this thriving community at transforminghealthcarecoaching.com. Together, we can transform healthcare one person at a time.